here. I actually, this is my second visit. I was here about 10 years ago in a similar debate on a similar topic. I have to confess that we lost the debate. But today, I want to talk to you about the Middle East. The previous speakers have been focusing on Israel and Palestine. But the Middle East in the age of missiles now is a much different place. You have to look at the wider region and see what Israel is facing in the wider region. On Sunday, Ayatollah Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, put out a retweet. It was a rehash of an earlier tweet that he had. He called Israel a tumor that has to be removed. Now, I have objections on this in two levels. Obviously, the one, basically, he's calling for wiping out Israel. But I also, I object to the use of a cancer metaphor. For those of you who know people who have cancer, it's an ugly metaphor for anybody to use. And I'm going to come back to that theme. But I have two main points to show why Israel is not a destabilizing force in the Middle East. One, I will outline to you why the main events in your lifetime, in the last 25 years, have been mainly not about Israel. And second, I will talk about the real destabilizing force in the Middle East, the Islamic Republic of Iran. And I will try to give you a sense of what is really going on in the Middle East right now. Very interesting things going on in the Middle East right now. And hopefully in the 9 minutes left, you'll get a sense of my great passion for this. In 1990 to 91, the Middle East was faced with Saddam Hussein invading another country, Kuwait, and the United States leading a coalition to liberate Kuwait. Nothing to do with Israel. In 2001, 9/11 happened. Nothing to do with Israel. In 2003, the coalition to remove Saddam Hussein, not about Israel. In 2009, there was the Green Movement in Iran, which was about the stolen election by Ahmadinejad, not about Israel. In 2011, starting in Tunisia and spreading to Egypt, Yemen, Jordan, Bahrain, Syria, and elsewhere, was the Arab Spring, not about Israel. From 2011 to the present, still going on, is the Syrian civil war, just north of Israel. We'll talk about Syria in a second. But again, not about Israel. In 2014 to 2017, ISIS erupted and took over major cities in Iraq and Syria, not about Israel. So you see, Israel is not a destabilizing force. The Middle East is a very unstable place with lots of destabilizing forces. Today, the major destabilizing force in the Middle East is the Islamic Republic of Iran, which takes advantage of the weaknesses in the Arab state, the rise of sectarianism, the rise of family, clan, sectarianism, identity politics, and the decline of the state. They have taken advantage now of the vacuum left by the defeat of ISIS. By the way, the defeat of ISIS was not by Iran, it was by the United States-led coalition. The United States has consistently fought wars to benefit Iran, and Iran has moved in to take advantage and fill the vacuums they did with the defeat of Saddam Hussein, their adversary, and again with ISIS. And what did they do? Iran has been supporting the Houthis in Yemen in their takeover of large parts of northern Yemen, including the capital Sana'a. And a humanitarian disaster is unfolding right now in Yemen. Iran controls many of the popular mobilization units, PMUs, in Iraq. These were ostensibly created as irregular army units of Shia to fight ISIS, but now they're used by Iran to solidify its grip on the oil-rich Iraq. And then Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC. Particularly the Al-Quds division, led by the wily and very able Qasem Soleimani, has come to the rescue of Bashar Assad, who was responsible as head of Syria for chemical weapons, and his regime has killed over 500,000 people. Iran has come to his rescue, and we see, as a result of the saving of Bashar Assad, massive refugee outflows to Europe, to Turkey, Jordan, and Lebanon. And now Qasem Soleimani and the Iranians are seeking to establish military bases in Syria, hollowed out Syria, exhausted Syria by over 7 years of civil war. Why? Why does Iran want these bases? Not to defeat ISIS. ISIS is already defeated. They're being mopped up. There's some remnants of ISIS in the desert. No. Iran wants to establish bases near the Israeli border, to create a second front in addition to the Hezbollah-Lebanon front, to further intimidate Israel. So Israel stayed out of the Syrian civil war for 6 years. That's hardly destabilizing activity. The only thing Israel did for the last 6 years, the only thing that Israel did for the last 6 years, was to provide humanitarian help, field hospitals for the rebels in Syria on the border of Israel. They stayed out of the Syrian morass. But now, with Iran menacing Israel, Israel strikes back. Israel is acting, I believe, in self-defense. Again, I repeat this odious tweet by Ayatollah Khamenei. Israel is a tumor that must be removed. There's a biblical verse in Leviticus that says, "Do not stand by while your neighbor's blood is shed." Now, rabbis have derived a principle from that if someone rises up to kill the innocent, you must take that person's life first. And this is what Israel is doing right now. Israel is disrupting the Iranian regime's plan to create a second front on the Syrian border alongside Hezbollah. Now, as a result of Israel's forceful actions, their Air Force has attacked numerous Iranian bases in the last few weeks, in retaliation mainly of an Iranian attack on Israeli-held territory. Now Russia, the E3, the US, and others recognize that Iran's presence in Syria is a destabilizing force that will threaten post-Civil War plans for Syrian reconstruction. Israel's coercive diplomacy is an example of the use of force to achieve diplomatic objectives, namely to remove a destabilizing Iran from its northern neighbor, Syria. If you ask a Saudi, if you ask an Emirati, if you ask them who is destabilizing the Middle East, Iran or Israel, they will, I assure you, say Iran. Israel is in fact a stabilizing force. It has brought free, democratic, and vibrant society to the region, let alone its medical, technical, innovative, agricultural contributions to the greater good of humanity. So that's my speech. I finished early. Now let me ad lib. Look, guys, Israel is going to be around. Israel is going to be with us. To call it a destabilizing force does not help. Israel has reached out to the Palestinians. I myself worked on the peace process for 6 years. I myself have met Arafat numerous times. There is a peace process to be had, but you cannot get to peace by calling one country a destabilizing force. Secondly, you have to understand with these missiles that Iran is testing, they're testing in Yemen, they're testing in Syria, these missiles are not silly little playthings. These missiles, of course, the proxy of Iran, Hezbollah, has about 120,000 of them. These missiles can hit northern Tel Aviv, they can hit anywhere in Israel, actually. And the more they get precise, the more that Iran is able to adapt them to make them precision-guided missiles, the so-called Fateh 110, the more dangerous it is to Israel. Israel has no choice but to preempt. If Ayatollah Khamenei, the author of that odious tweet about removing the tumor of Israel, if he thinks he can get more security for Iran by pushing out the borders to the border of Israel and Syria, he's wrong. He's making Israel insecure, so Israel has no choice other than to make northern Tehran insecure. And believe me, Israel has the capacity to hit northern Tehran much better and much more accurately than Iran does to northern Tel Aviv. But this is the nature of the beast in the Middle East. You have one side that is truly destabilizing the Middle East. From Gaza, with the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, with Hamas, Iran is supporting them. In Hezbollah in Lebanon, Iran is there. In Iraq, I showed you about the PMUs. Iran is there. In Syria, Iran is taking advantage of a hollowed out Syria. In Yemen, Iran is taking advantage of the Houthis. They are everywhere across the Middle East, and they must be stopped. Iran, not Israel, is a destabilizing force. It's the dominant destabilizing force in the Middle East, and Israel is doing all it can to defeat this destabilizing force. Thank you.